Hi, welcome back to Open Hand Farm. My name is Penny, and if you have never been here before, I am so happy to have you. A couple of weeks ago, I put up a video where we did a remake on this front porch. It needed some things replaced, it needed some things painted, and it really is enjoyable now to sit out here and know that that work is done. But we do have another area in our backyard that is located amongst our gardens, and it is our fire pit. We like to go out there. We do burn brush in the fire pit, but we also just have fires. And we like to go out in the evening and just sit around and talk and watch the chickens and look at the gardens. It's just an enjoyable place to be. But you will see in a minute that the fire pit became something that was not enjoyable to be in. Unfortunately, it is the last area that got weeds pulled because the gardens always come first. And it just kind of got filled up with some firewood and some debris that we had. It was just kind of a catch-all area. It just never was as cozy as we would like it to be. So we decided to enlarge that area so that we could include putting a table and chairs there. So we decided to go ahead and do that. So let me show you what the fire pit looked like when we started this project and how we ended up changing it. So this is what the fire pit looked like before we started working on it. You can see all the weeds, some brush sitting around. We had some firewood pieces that were just kind of oddly shaped that we didn't stack in our firewood that goes in our house, and it just really needed help. This fire pit is roughly 15 feet by 12 feet, and it was barely big enough to hold 4 chairs and the swing. Mark got busy digging, and this is the new size. He's taking a break, as you can see. And the new size is roughly 24 by 18, and you can kind of see where the smaller section fell into this bigger area. He decided to go ahead and put boards around it this time to help hold the mulch in so it wouldn't just disappear into the yard and we lose the line of what our fire pit is. So he stapled ground cloth on it, and then when he put the boards in the hole, it kind of buried the edges of the ground cloth all the way around the board so that it gave us more protection from our Bermuda grass coming in under the board and into our fire pit area. So after he put the board in and pulled the fabric back, that left an opening in the trench that needed to be backfilled to hold the board in place. So he used the soil that had been removed to make room for the board and broke it up and filled it with that. And then after we pulled the fabric in to cover the fire pit area, which in some cases it's covered with 2 to 3 layers because they overlapped from each side, we then had a gap to fill there. So I went ahead and broke off pieces of sod and stuck down in there. It was a pretty deep hole, and I had to kind of do it a little bit at a time so that I could get it full enough to really hold the board in place so that it wasn't going to wiggle back and forth. This was a little time consuming, but well worth it. And it looked so nice once it was all full and up to the board, and just it looked really finished then. Now after the fabric was pulled in and over the ground of the fire pit, We did put some corner brackets on the corners so that it held those boards together, and because the sides were so wide, we had to put two boards together on the sides as well, and we also used brackets to hold those. Now before we cover it up, you can again see where our old fire pit was. Now it was time to pull all of the tarps up over each other one set at a time and pin down in areas to hold it tightly. It looked great. I used it as a painting drop cloth area to go ahead and repaint this green furniture. It had started to get pretty rough looking, a lot of chips and snags, but the first thing I needed to do was wash it all off so that the new paint would stick better. I'm starting the cleaning on the top of the chair, and then after I clean the whole top of the chair, I'm going to flip it over and wash the bottom, and then I will start my spray painting with the bottom. If I found some spots that were kind of tough, I had a toothbrush I just kind of scrubbed them with, but they cleaned up really nicely. Now that they were all clean, it was time to paint. I bought a hammered Rust-Oleum, and I really like the finish that it gave. I painted the swing as well as the 4 chairs. I started with the bottom of the chairs and did the areas that I would not be able to reach. Once I flipped the chairs over, I did go ahead and spray the back of the chair as well, because I knew I could touch that up as a second coat when it was standing upright, but there were just some little areas that I knew I would need to do while it was upside down. In this part of the video, you'll notice that the color is a little bit different than what I was using. We had to go buy more, and they didn't have any more of the color we were using, but I was also needing to buy paint for the new table that we had, and so this color worked better with the table and chair color, so I just gave a slight touch up to all of the chairs that were already done and used the rest of it to paint the ones that had not been painted. Now, after I was done using the drop cloth of sorts, it was time for Mark to start bringing in the wood chips. We have a big pile that a tree trimming company gave to us. They were very happy to have us take their wood chips instead of them having to pay for them to go somewhere. I can't remember how many wheelbarrow fulls of wood chips Mark brought in, but I believe it was close to 25. We wanted to enlarge this area so that we would have room for a table and chair set. We looked on Marketplace and finally found a set that we felt good about buying. We wanted something really sturdy that was not going to tip over and big enough to pull up 6 chairs to. This one only came with 2 chairs, but 2 of the chairs are swivel rockers, and I love that. And the table is a stone top table. It was perfect for what we needed, but it did need a new paint job. So I bought a brush-on hammered Rust-Oleum enamel paint to paint these with. So I washed them down, and one of the reasons they needed paint was there were lots of chips, especially on the arms, because they had been pushed under the table and knocked against it. So those definitely needed to be touched up. There were some nicks on the back of the chair, but definitely the arms of the chair were the biggest culprits of needing to be redone. And it just looked a little tired in general. So I taped off the fabric before I started painting, and even though I really don't like taping things off because it's just so tedious, It was a great plan for these chairs. It just did the trick. After I taped them, all I had to do was paint them and then pull the tape off, and they looked gorgeous. I really like the look of the hammered paint, and it just came out so clean by using this tape. I felt like the table needed some sort of protection. I found this sealer, and it is a water base, so there's no chemicals, so that you can use it with food and it's not going to have chemical residue. They suggested using this little applicator, which was $3 and something, and I went ahead and did that, and I really am glad I did because it went on so well. It looks so pretty while it's wet. It does not stay that way, although it does look nicer than the way it looked before I put the sealer on it. It just glides right on, and make sure if you do this to get those edges and the sides of the table as well. This just went on much faster than using a paintbrush, and it dried pretty quickly, which means it soaked into the stone. So if it dried like that pretty quickly, you're supposed to put another coat on it. So after this one was dry, I did apply a second coat. And then after that coat dried, I took a rag and just buffed it off because it felt like a little residue was on top of the stone. So now the stone is just smooth and nice, and I know that it is protected. While I was doing the painting, Mark was doing more mulch, and he finally got it all done. Let's look at how our fire pit looks now. We have so much more room. People could even bring their own lawn chairs and put them next to these chairs so that we could have more people. These are just some other pictures up close, and this table, I just love it. I am so pleased with the way it turned out. We paid $200, and I found one similar online for $2,600. I know we'll get a lot of good use out of this area. Thank you so much for coming along on this adventure with us. It has been a lot of work, but I know that we are going to enjoy this area so much. And we did buy a canopy, so you'll notice I'm sitting in shade. We put it over the table, and it works great. Even in the heat of the day, we sit out here and the breeze blows, and it's so nice. If you are new here, again, thank you for coming along. I hope that you find other videos that might interest you. I have canning videos, cooking videos, sewing videos, all kinds of things that would go along with a homestead type life. And thank you for all of you returning viewers. You are such a blessing to us. And for all of you, please be sure and subscribe, give a thumbs up, and definitely share any video that you think your friends would enjoy. And until next time, blessings on you and yours.